Hi, music colleagues. My name is Ruth Peterson. I'm the band director at Bailey Middle School in Cornelius, North Carolina. I'm very excited to join the CMA Foundation's Unified Voices for Music Education. We know that last year left us with a gap in instruction and without face-to-face interaction with our students. I'm here to share a lesson plan entitled A Virtual Museum of Black Composers, to provide you with a resource to share with your students so that they can learn music history from a different perspective and to see composers who may look more like them. This video will include the following information: a summary of the lesson, the actual lesson being taught, tips for using the lesson, and how you can extend this lesson in your own way. After attending some conferences and webinars this summer, I became aware that students of color are not receiving the same music education as their white classmates. I also realized that there is an enormous lack of materials available for teachers to help bridge this gap. To help provide a resource, I created this following lesson plan. The lesson plan, A Virtual Museum of Black Composers, meets the national standards of responding while embedding connecting. The lesson plan can be used for asynchronous learning, synchronous learning, or a blend. The only materials needed by the students include an internet connection and a computer or a mobile device. Teachers are encouraged to discuss the eras in music history and the typical composers that we reference in each, to give the students a sense of familiarity, to link the new information regarding Black composers. Associations between Black and other composers should be noted. For example, Henry T. Burleigh and Dvorak. Students should listen to music by the Black composers and incorporate higher thinking skills such as evaluation or analysis of the works. And I have included a set of questions about each composer along with an answer key. There are 7 eras in our music history. In chronological order, these include medieval from 1150 to 1400, the Renaissance period from 1400 to 1600, the Baroque period from 1600 to 1750, the Classical period from 1750 to 1820, the Romantic period from 1820 to 1900, and then the 20th century, and finally the Contemporary or Modern era. And the dates are not always agreed upon by experts, so there may be variances in these. But today we're going to focus on the classical era in music history, and we're going to be answering the following essential questions. How do we judge the quality of musical works and performances? How do musicians make meaningful connections to creating, performing, and responding? How do other arts, other disciplines, contexts, and daily life inform creating, performing, and responding to music? 2 composers that we identify with in the classical era are Franz Joseph Haydn and Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. A contemporary of Mozart's was Joseph de Boulogne, the Chevalier of St. George's. He was one of the most remarkable people of the 18th century. He was the son of a slave who rose to the top of French society through the mastery of fencing, of all things, and his genius for classical music. His career is illustrated in the museum portrait that is here. He is dressed for a concert, but he's holding a sword in place of a conductor's baton. The painting was done in London in 1787 by the American artist Mather Brown. By 1778, St. George's had reached his professional peak as a composer. He had published 2 symphony concertantes in 1776 and 2 more in 1778. In 1777, he wrote 3 violin concertos and 6 string quartets. Some people call St. George's the Black Mozart, but that nickname is not accurate according to experts. St. George's was always much more than a figure in classical music. He was one of the best fencers in Europe and a heroic colonel in the French Revolution. St. George's wrote the music for a second musical comedy called The Hunt. It was first performed on October 12, 1778. It was a big hit with the audience and was unanimously praised by the press. Early in 1779, St. George's began performing music with none other than Queen Marie Antoinette at Versailles at her request. It is noted, however, that some people in the palace were very unhappy about the arrangement. The Chevalier was one of the first Black Masons in France, and the Masons founded a new orchestra. It was known as the Olympic Lodge Orchestra, and the musicians were all Masons and were highly skilled. They performed in the elegant quarters in the royal palace under the direction of St. George's. In 1784, he was authorized to commission Franz Joseph Haydn to write 6 symphonies for publication in Paris. St. George's and the orchestra premiered Haydn's 6 pieces. These are known as the Paris Symphonies, numbers 82 through 87, in a triumphant series of concerts in 1787. Queen Marie Antoinette attended them, and Symphony number 85 is called The Queen because it was Her Majesty's favorite. St. George's lived alone in a small apartment in Paris during the last 2 years of his life. In late spring 1799, an untreated infection caused him to become weak and feverish. On June 12, 1799, St. George's was taken in and cared for by a friend who had served with him in the French Revolution. He stayed at his friend's home until his death on June 10, 1799. At this time, let's check for understanding about the life of St. George's. Joseph de Boulogne, the Chevalier of St. George's, was a composer, and he was also a great fencer. What kinds of pieces did St. George's compose? He composed violin concertos, symphonies, string quartets, and sonatas. St. George's had become known in the world of fencing as the god of arms. Early in 1779, St. George's began performing music with Queen Marie Antoinette at the Palace of Versailles at her request. St. George's became the conductor for the Olympic Lodge Orchestra. He was given permission to commission a famous composer to write 6 symphonies for publication in Paris. Who was this famous composer? It was Franz Joseph Haydn. St. George's volunteered for active duty during the French Revolution. He was later appointed a colonel of a legion. This legion became known as the St. George's Legion. Next, we're going to listen to a composition by St. George's. And this is the Violin Concerto in G major, Opus 2, number 1. Now, we will discuss a reaction to this work. How do we judge the quality of musical works and performances? How do musicians make meaningful connections to creating and performing and responding? How do other arts, other disciplines, other contexts and daily life inform performing and creating and responding to music? At this point, we would have a discussion with the students and their reaction to this piece, how it fits into the time period, and also how it compares to Mozart at the time. In the museum, There are 18 portraits, each with a link to a web page about each of the composers. You can see from this that you could choose to focus on a certain composer. You could focus on a period or era of composers, or you could have your students take a quick tour of all of them. This lesson can be expanded or shortened to fit your plan for your students, whether it's just to create awareness, have one lesson, or have a unit of lessons. Comparisons can be made between the composers in the same era. I developed this lesson plan using Canva, C-A-N-V-A. It's a graphic design platform, and teachers are allowed to sign up for education accounts. The education accounts are free, and they have almost all of the perks of the pro version, which you have to pay for. You simply have to fill out the application, upload a copy of your ID, and then they will approve that and you'll be ready to go. Many teachers right now are creating virtual classrooms, and that same technology could be used to create a virtual museum like this in Google Slides. You can create your own interactive museums, and you could use things like Latinx composers or black brass players, female brass players. The possibilities are endless. You could create a virtual museum of all the composers of the songs or pieces that you're using on a concert. And with a QR code on the program, the audience members could visit the museum and learn about the composers of the different pieces. Also, Canva enables you to have classrooms of students on it, and you could have the students make their own kinds of museums. I hope this lesson plan gives you a resource that you can use this year and inspires you and your students to learn about the rest of our music history. Thank you for watching.